The emergency alert pierced through the calm of monitoring station Epsilon, its harsh tone sending ripples of tension through the crystalline architecture. Senior observer Kilara's translucent appendages flickered with concern as she studied the quantum readings before her. The signature was unlike anything registered in the collective's vast databases. "Confirm analysis," she commanded, her harmonics carrying an edge that made her junior observers pause in their tasks. The ship that had just appeared at the edge of their space wasn't merely unexpected. It was impossible. The vessel's hull absorbed their scanning beams instead of reflecting them. Its propulsion system defied known physics, and its size. Kilara's inner membranes pulsed with anxiety. The ship was larger than anything the collective had constructed in the past millennium. "Origin vector traced," announced junior observer Merrick's, his voice frequencies betraying his youth. It came from the quarantine zone." Senior observer. The quarantine zone. 3 words that sent a collective shudder through the monitoring station's crew. Everyone knew about the forbidden sector of space, sealed off 2 centuries ago after the incident. The home system of the species deemed too dangerous to join galactic civilization. "Humans, send alert to Central Command," Kilara ordered, her decision crystals glowing with determination. "Priority Ultra. Unknown vessel of human origin has breached containment. Repeat. Human vessel has breached containment." The massive ship continued its advance, its dark hull seeming to drink in the light from nearby stars. It moved with purpose, its trajectory precise and unwavering. This was no accident, no random violation of quarantine. The humans had come with intent. "They're broadcasting," Merrick's reported suddenly. "Audio only, using old collective frequencies." Kilara hesitated. Protocol dictated no communication with quarantine species, but protocol had never anticipated a ship of this magnitude. "Play it," she commanded. The voice that filled the station was calm, measured, speaking perfect collective harmonic language. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Prometheus. We come with urgent warning. Your civilization faces extinction. We require immediate audience with the Collective Council." Kilara's decision crystals flared red. "Initiate defense grid activation. Alert the nearest patrol fleet." "We cannot." "Observer," the human voice interrupted. "We detected your defense grid powering up. Please note that if we meant harm, we wouldn't have announced ourselves. You have exactly 30 minutes to arrange contact with the Council before we proceed on our own. The choice is yours." The timestamp appeared on Kilara's console. 30 minutes, counting down. She studied the massive vessel again, noting how it had positioned itself, just outside effective range of their defensive systems, but close enough to reach the station before reinforcements could arrive. Senior observer, Merrick's harmonics trembled. Additional readings from the human vessel. Their weapons systems, they're unlike anything in our database. Not energy-based. They're primitive. Kinetic weapons. Projectiles. Kilara's membranes rippled with realization. The collective had advanced beyond physical weaponry millennia ago, considering it crude and inefficient. But there had been rumors, whispers about why humans were really quarantined. Not because they were primitive, but because they were different. Dangerously different. Open channel to Central Command, she decided. And maintain communication link with the human vessel. "Captain Chen," she addressed the waiting ship, "the Council will need more than your word to risk breaking quarantine protocols." "Understood, observer," Chen replied, and Kilara detected something like grim satisfaction in the human's voice. "Transmitting data package now. Warning. What you're about to see will change everything you think you know about your history, and ours." As the data began streaming in, Kilara watched the countdown timer tick away. 28 minutes until the humans acted on their own. 28 minutes to decide if centuries of protocol were worth maintaining in the face of whatever threat had driven humanity to emerge from their isolation. She began analyzing the incoming data, and with each passing moment, her decision crystals pulsed with growing horror. The humans hadn't been quarantined because they were dangerous to the collective. They had been quarantined because they were the only ones who could save it. The council chamber's crystalline spires caught the light of 3 setting suns, casting prismatic shadows across the assembled dignitaries. Captain Chen stood at the center of the vast amphitheater, her dark uniform a stark contrast to the luminescent forms of the collective's leadership. Behind her, a holographic display showed the Prometheus hanging in space, its massive form dwarfing the patrol ships that surrounded it. "You speak of extinction." First Speaker Luminax's voice resonated through the chamber, each harmonic carrying centuries of authority. Yet the collective has known peace for millennia. What threat could be so grave as to justify breaking quarantine? Chen's hand moved to her pocket, withdrawing a small obsidian cube. The alien council members leaned forward, their crystalline forms shifting colors in response to their curiosity. This artifact was discovered in the ruins of Proxima B, one of our colony worlds, she explained. It predates your civilization, it predates ours, and it contains a warning. She placed the cube on the central platform. It hummed to life, projecting images that filled the chamber with ancient horrors. The council watched in silence as scenes of devastation played out before them. Entire worlds consumed by something that moved like living darkness between the stars. "We call them the Void Hunters," Chen continued. "They emerge from deep space every 50,000 years to feed on developed worlds. They don't just destroy civilizations, they consume them. Their technology, their energy, their very essence." First Speaker Luminax's form pulsed with skepticism. "If such beings existed, our records would show." "Your records were altered," Chen interrupted, "just as the true reason for our quarantine was hidden." Observer Kilara, please share what your analysis of our data revealed. Kilara moved forward, her crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. The data package from the human vessel contained encrypted files from our own archives, files that had been sealed by the previous council. She hesitated, her harmonics wavering. "They confirm everything the humans claim. The Void Hunters are real, and they're awakening." The chamber erupted in harmonic discord as council members reacted to the news. Chen waited for the chaos to subside before continuing. "Your ancestors discovered evidence of the Void Hunters' last emergence. They also found something else, records of how they were driven back. By humans. Our ancestors." The holographic display shifted, showing primitive human warriors wielding simple weapons against shadows that consumed energy and light. "Your civilizations advanced toward energy-based technology, growing more sophisticated with each generation. But humanity, we remained connected to our roots, to physical weapons, kinetic energy, chemical reactions, things the Void Hunters couldn't simply absorb." The quarantine. Kilara's voice carried sudden understanding. "It wasn't to protect the collective from humans. It was to preserve us." Chen finished. "To keep a weapon in reserve. Your ancestors knew the Void Hunters would return. They knew your energy-based technology would be useless against them. So they isolated us, letting us develop along our own path, maintaining our primitive ways." First Speaker Luminax rose, his massive crystalline form towering over the assembly. "If what you say is true, why come forward now? Why not wait for these beings to emerge?" Chen's expression hardened. "Because we detected their awakening 6 months ago. Long-range scans show they're stirring in the void between galaxies, but they're not following their usual pattern. They're waking up early. All of them. At once." The holographic display shifted again, showing dark masses moving at the edges of known space. "We estimate 3 months before the first wave reaches populated systems. 6 months until they reach the collective's core worlds. We need to prepare. Together. Together." The word rippled through the council chamber. What could primitives offer the collective? Chen smiled grimly. "We've spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment. The Prometheus isn't just a warship. It's a prototype, combining your advanced detection systems with our primitive weapons. We call it a void breaker, and we've built a fleet of them. The display showed more ships, hundreds of them, hidden in the asteroid fields of the human system, each one bristling with railguns, missile batteries, and projectile weapons designed to tear through enemies that could absorb any energy thrown at them. "Your ancestors preserved us for this moment," Chen declared. "Now we're offering you a choice. Stand with us against the darkness, or watch as everything you've built is consumed by it. You have 1 hour to decide." As the council chamber descended into urgent deliberation, Kilara moved to stand beside Chen. "The collective hasn't faced real war in generations," she said softly. "We've forgotten how to fight." Chen's eyes remained fixed on the images of approaching darkness. "Then we'll remind you. Because this time, humanity isn't fighting alone. We're fighting for everyone." The integration bay of the Prometheus hummed with activity as collective engineers worked alongside human technicians. Their crystalline forms caught the light from welding torches as they helped mount kinetic weapon systems onto their own vessels. Captain Chen watched from the observation deck, Lieutenant Kilara, newly appointed liaison officer, at her side. "Your people learn quickly," Chen observed as a collective cruiser successfully test-fired its newly installed railgun, the projectile destroying a practice target in a spray of debris. "I wasn't sure they'd adapt to physical weapons so easily. Necessity drives adaptation." Kilara's crystalline form pulsed with a mix of pride and concern. Though many still struggle with the concept of launching solid projectiles, it seems inelegant to them. "Inelegant works," Chen replied, studying a tactical display showing the defensive line they'd established at the edge of collective space. 50 ships so far, a mix of human void breakers and modified collective vessels. Not enough. Not nearly enough. The alert came without warning. Long-range sensors screamed to life, detecting massive energy distortions at the edge of their perimeter. Chen's hand tightened on the railing. "Status report. Multiple quantum ruptures detected," the sensor officer called out. "Energy signatures match historical records of Void Hunter vessels. 5 entities emerging." The main screen showed the space ahead of them tearing open, darkness spilling out like liquid shadow. The vessels that emerged defied conventional physics. Their forms seemed to bend light around them, creating the impression of moving holes in reality. "All ships, battle stations," Chen commanded. "Remember your training. Energy weapons are useless. Stick to kinetic loadouts. Collective vessels, maintain distance and focus on scanning and detection. Void breakers will handle the engagement." The first Void Hunter ship accelerated toward their line, its surface rippling like oil on water. It launched an attack, not a beam or projectile, but a wave of pure entropy that began breaking down the molecular structure of everything it touched. "Evasive maneuvers," Chen ordered. "Collective ships, fall back to secondary positions. Void Breaker Squadron 1, engage on my mark." The human ships moved forward, their hulls dark and angular compared to the crystalline collective vessels. They had been built for this moment, designed to fight an enemy that consumed energy itself. Fire. The space between the fleets erupted with solid metal projectiles, accelerated to relativistic speeds. The first salvo struck the lead Void Hunter vessel, tearing through its fluid-like surface. The entity recoiled, its form distorting as it tried to adapt to damage it couldn't simply absorb. "Direct hits confirmed," Kilara reported, her crystalline form vibrating with excitement. "Their outer layer is compromised. They're bleeding." The Void Hunters responded, their attack pattern shifting. 2 more entropy waves launched, followed by tendrils of pure darkness that reached for the nearest ships. A collective vessel that strayed too close found its crystalline structure beginning to dissolve. "Prometheus, engaging main battery," Chen announced. The massive ship's spine lit up as capacitors charge, not to fire energy weapons, but to launch a new type of projectile, loading shatter rounds. The projectiles that launched looked like simple metal slugs, but they were far more. On impact, they burst into clouds of molecularly engineered particles designed to disrupt the Void Hunter's fluid structure. The lead entity's surface began to crystallize, losing its ability to flow and adapt. "It's working," Kilara exclaimed. "Their molecular cohesion is failing. All ships, target the compromised sections." The combined fleet pressed their advantage, human kinetic weapons tearing into the areas weakened by the shatter rounds. The lead Void Hunter vessel began to break apart, its darkness leaking into space like smoke. But the others were learning, adapting their approach. They moved more cautiously now, testing the fleet's defenses, probing for weaknesses. Chen watched their movements with growing concern. "These are just scouts," she realized aloud. "They're studying us, learning our capabilities. The real force is still coming. At least we know they can be hurt," Kilara offered, her harmonics carrying hope. "That they can be killed." Chen nodded grimly as she watched the remaining Void Hunters retreat, their fluid forms slipping back into the quantum ruptures they'd emerged from. "They can be killed, but they'll be back. And next time, they'll be ready for us." The tactical display updated, showing more quantum distortions forming at the edge of known space. Hundreds of them. The scouts had done their job. Now the main invasion was beginning. "Send word to Earth," Chen ordered. "Tell them to launch everything we have. And inform the Council. We're about to find out if humanity's primitive weapons are enough to save the galaxy." As the fleet regrouped and prepared for the coming storm, Chen couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The collective had quarantined humanity for being too violent, too primitive, too focused on physical weapons. Now those same qualities might be all that stood between civilization and the void. The void between stars erupted with tears in reality as the main Void Hunter fleet emerged. Not dozens of ships, but thousands, each one a writhing mass of darkness that consumed light itself. The combined human collective defense fleet faced them, outnumbered but determined. From the Prometheus's bridge, Captain Chen watched the enemy advance. The tactical display showed hundreds of quantum ruptures continuing to form. Status of the civilian evacuation. Collective colony worlds in the projected path are at 87% evacuated. Kilara reported, her crystalline form dim with exhaustion after days of coordination. "But we're running out of time." "Time just ran out," Chen said grimly as the first wave of Void Hunters accelerated toward their lines. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Omega. Void Breakers, form up on your designated collective cruisers. Remember your training. We hit them together." The human-designed Void Breakers moved into formation, each one partnering with several collective ships. They had discovered that while the crystalline vessels couldn't harm the Void Hunters directly, their advanced sensors could predict the enemy's fluid movements with incredible precision. The enemy struck first. Waves of entropy washed across space, followed by tentacles of pure darkness that reached for the defenders. This time, the Void Hunters moved with purpose, having learned from their scouts' earlier encounter. "They're targeting our collective ships first," Chen observed. "They know the crystalline hulls are vulnerable." Countermeasure pods. Launch. Thousands of small devices ejected from the human vessels, creating a field of metallic chaff between the fleets. The entropy waves struck the cloud, their destructive energy dispersed and scattered by the simple physical barrier. "All ships, execute attack pattern Sierra," Chen commanded. "Collective vessels, concentrate your scanning beams on designated targets. Void Breakers, wait for targeting solutions and fire at will." The space between fleets lit up with a flash of railgun fire and the streak of missile trails. The Void Hunters tried to dodge, their fluid forms twisting in ways that defied physics, but the collective's predictive targeting was perfect. Kinetic rounds found their marks, tearing through the darkness. But for every Void Hunter they destroyed, 3 more emerged from the quantum ruptures. The enemy's fluid forms began to merge, creating massive composite entities that launched entropy storms powerful enough to vaporize entire ships. "We're losing containment in sectors 7 through 12. Killara reported as another collective cruiser dissolved under the enemy's attack. They're adapting to our weapons too quickly. Chen's hands tightened on her command console. They had expected the Void Hunters to be powerful, but this was beyond their projections. The enemy wasn't just fighting. It was evolving, learning, becoming stronger with each engagement. New contact, the sensor officer shouted. Massive quantum rupture forming. It's larger than anything we've seen. The space ahead of them tore open, the rupture large enough to swallow a small moon. What emerged wasn't a ship or even a composite entity. It was a living void, a darkness so complete it seemed to pull at the soul itself. Mother of God, Chen whispered. That's their command entity. The one from the ancient records, the Void Queen. The massive being's presence seemed to energize the other Void Hunters. They fought with renewed vigor, their attacks becoming more coordinated, more lethal. 3 more collective ships vanished into entropy storms, their crystalline crews having no time even to scream. Fall back to secondary positions, Chen ordered. We need to regroup before the Void Queen struck, not with entropy waves or darkness tendrils, but with something worse, a psychic assault that tore through the minds of every being in the fleet. Collective crew members shattered, their crystalline forms breaking under the mental pressure. Even the humans staggered, their thoughts assaulted by visions of absolute darkness. But in that moment of contact, Chen saw something. A flash of understanding transmitted through the psychic attack. The Void Hunters weren't just hunting. They were running from something that even they feared. Killara, Chen fought through the psychic pain. Do you see it? In the Queen's thoughts. Yes, Killara's voice was strained, her crystalline form flickering weakly. They're not here to feed. They're here to hide. To use our worlds as a shield against something worse. All ships, Chen broadcast to the fleet, her voice steady despite the continuing psychic assault. Execute Emergency Protocol Alpha. Prepare to receive new targeting data. We're going to show these monsters that humanity didn't spend 2 centuries preparing to become someone else's shield. The Prometheus's main guns began to charge, loading a new type of ammunition that they had hoped wouldn't be necessary. Sometimes, Chen reflected, the most primitive solution was also the most effective. May whatever gods exist forgive us, she whispered, then gave the order that would change the course of the battle, and possibly the fate of the galaxy itself. The Prometheus shuddered as its main battery prepared to fire. In the ship's core, reactor crystals provided by the collective pulsed with energy, not to power energy weapons, but to accelerate something far more primitive and far more dangerous. Nuclear payload armed, the weapons officer reported. Antimatter containment field stable. Chen looked at the tactical display, where the Void Queen's massive form dominated the space ahead of them. Around it, its children continued their assault on the fleet, but now Chen understood their desperate fury. They weren't conquerors, they were refugees, trying to build a wall of conquered worlds to hide behind. Killara, status of the collective ships. All surviving vessels are in position, Killara reported, her crystalline form dim but steady. The Queen's psychic assault damaged many, but those still functioning have their sensor arrays focused on the target. The plan was insane, but then, humanity's greatest achievements often were. They had loaded their largest railguns with something that combined the best of both civilizations. Nuclear warheads wrapped in collective quantum crystals, designed to crack open the very fabric of space-time. All ships, clear the target zone, Chen ordered. When these weapons detonate, they're going to create a localized quantum implosion. Anything too close will be pulled in. The fleet moved back, creating a killing zone around the Void Queen. The massive entity seemed to sense their intention, its darkness rippling with what might have been fear. It launched another psychic assault, more powerful than before. Images flooded Chen's mind. The thing that hunted the Void Hunters, a horror from between universes that made even these cosmic predators seem small. The Queen was trying to make them understand, to show them why it needed their worlds as shelter. We understand, Chen whispered, even as she gave the final order. "But we're not your shield. Fire." The Prometheus's main gun launched its payload. The massive round accelerated to near-light speed. Other void breakers fired simultaneously, their quantum-wrapped warheads converging on the Queen from multiple vectors. The collective ship's targeting data was perfect, leaving the entity nowhere to dodge. The first impacts cracked the Queen's outer shell, its fluid form struggling to adapt to physical damage. But it was the quantum crystals that did the real work. As the warheads detonated, the crystals shattered in precisely calculated patterns, creating a web of quantum fissures throughout the entity's mass. Space itself began to tear, the quantum implosion taking hold. The Void Queen's psychic scream echoed through every mind in the fleet as its massive form was pulled into the rupture, dragged back toward the void between universes from which it had fled. Its children, the smaller void hunters, began to dissolve without their queen's presence to hold them together. Some tried to flee back through their quantum ruptures, but the damage to local space-time was too severe. One by one, they were pulled into the implosion. Quantum event reaching critical mass. Killera reported, her crystalline form brightening with hope. The rupture is self-sustaining. They're being pulled back into the void. Chen watched as the last of the void hunters vanished into the quantum implosion. The rupture held for several more seconds, then collapsed in on itself with a flash of light that temporarily blinded every sensor in the fleet. When they could see again, the enemy was gone, but they had paid a heavy price. Nearly half their ships had been destroyed, and many of the surviving vessels were badly damaged. The space around them was littered with debris, human metal, and collective crystal mixed together. "Begin search and rescue operations," Chen ordered. "Priority on life support compromised vessels." She turned to Killera. "What do your long-range sensors show?" "Local space-time is stabilizing," Killera reported. "The quantum fissures are sealing themselves. And there's something else. The implosion seems to have created a permanent disruption in the fabric of space. A barrier that works both ways." Chen nodded. "They can't come back, and whatever was hunting them can't follow them here either. We didn't just drive them off. We sealed the gap between universes." The fleet began the slow process of recovery, human and collective ships working together to rescue survivors and salvage what they could. On the Prometheus's bridge, Chen finally allowed herself to relax slightly. "The Council will want to reinstate the quarantine," Killera said quietly. "Some will argue that humanity is too dangerous to remain free, now that the crisis is over." Chen smiled. "They can try. But I think both our peoples have learned something important today. The collective's wisdom and humanity's determination. We're stronger together than apart, and we're going to need that strength." "Why?" Killera's form pulsed with curiosity. "Because now we know what's out there, what exists between universes, and next time something threatens this galaxy." Chen looked out at the combined fleet, at the fusion of human and collective technology that had saved them all. "Next time, we'll be ready." As repair ships began their work, and the fleet regrouped, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Humanity had proven itself to the galaxy, not through conquest or dominance, but by standing against the darkness alongside their former wardens. The quarantine was over, but something new was beginning. An alliance forged in crisis, tempered by battle, and strengthened by the understanding that sometimes the most primitive solution was exactly what the universe needed.